Losing the icon who was Prince was tough. He changed music, he challenged how masculinity and sexuality intertwine in pop culture, and well, he just made some pretty damn good songs. But Prince's death from an overdose on opioids really underscored a tragic reality facing more and more Americans every year. I'm Sana, this is AJ Plus, and today I want to talk about America's growing opioid addiction and how those responsible are the ones who are supposed to help us. Now, lots of beloved celebrities, names we know, names we listen to, faces we've watched, have struggled with opioid addiction. And in a few well-known cases, we didn't know until it was actually too late. Like Prince. The man was known for his theatrics on camera, off camera, and on stage. He brought a lot of energy into his performances. He loved to jump around and do splits. And while it looked awesome, it wasn't so hot for his body, especially his hips. So to deal with the pain, Prince started prescription medication, and he continued to use that medication well after his hip surgery years ago. And it's pretty hard to know for sure, but most folks think it's during that period that his addiction began. An addiction that led to his April 2016 death when he was found in his Minnesota home dead from an opioid overdose. Now, it's easy to look at Prince and think, well, big star, lots of fame, maybe susceptible to an addiction. But here's the thing, Prince's story of addiction and his death is one of hundreds of thousands in this country. So many people out there have strikingly similar stories that begin with a doctor's prescription and end with either rehab or an overdose.
I started getting pain pills for myself from the doctor. I started shooting up. I became an IV drug user.
When he sent me to rehab, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not an addict.
You know, I couldn't wake up in the morning and shave unless I had a pain pill.
For example, it's estimated that at least 7 million people have abused OxyContin, a name you probably recognize since it's the most well-known famous painkiller. And it doesn't just end at abusing painkillers. Overdoses are happening in every corner of the country. There have been over 190,000 deaths in less than 20 years. So what we're seeing happen across this country is nothing short of a health crisis. And that's surprising and concerning because this health crisis actually originates from within our healthcare system. Like, it originates from the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors who treat us. All right, so here's how it goes. Painkillers aren't new. They've been around for a long time, but for the most part, their use was limited to treating serious pain, like terminally ill with cancer kind of pain. Then in the 90s, drug companies saw an opportunity and thought, well, why not expand the market by treating other types of pain, like broken bones and back pain? That makes for more types of pain, more people, and so more money. And painkillers are opioids, which are drugs that interact with your brain and nervous system, which create a sense of pain relief and pure euphoria. And the pharma industry is big on making opioids like OxyContin, Percocet, Vicodin, and fentanyl. But as we all know, heroin also chemically falls into the same family, meaning painkillers are doing to your mind and body what heroin can do. Because of the addictive nature of opioids, doctors restricted their use and prescription. So the drug companies, especially Purdue Pharma, who makes OxyContin, undertook a marketing campaign to convince doctors that they could prescribe their painkiller more widely because they had made it less addictive. And for the record, they hadn't. And this campaign worked, like really worked. A Johns Hopkins study found that within 5 years, the amount of painkillers prescribed almost doubled. Purdue made money and continues to make a lot of money from doctors over prescribing painkillers. Each year, they see another $3 billion in revenue, mostly thanks to OxyContin. And it's paying off for them in a personal way, too. In 2015, the family that owns Purdue, the Sacklers, became one of the 20 richest families in America. That's even though in 2007, the company's marketing of OxyContin attracted the attention of the U.S. Department of Justice. The company, along with 3 of its executives, were charged with misleading doctors on the addictiveness of the drug. They settled the case for $635 million. But that was 10 years ago, and the ruling did surprisingly little to curb the number of prescriptions written for OxyContin. In 2014 alone, over 5 million scripts were given out. So unsurprisingly, this crisis isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
I wish I would have known how addictive that they really were, and that I was being prescribed a lot more than what I could have ever possibly needed.
I could say that I would wish that somebody would have told me that, that there was hope. I felt like that I was the one person out of a million that lived a different lifestyle, that not everybody out there went through the things that I've been through.
In fact, a recent report from Centers for Disease Control stated that, quote, the opioid overdose epidemic is worsening. The rate of prescription drug-related overdoses has tripled since 2000. In 2014, the same year that 5 million OxyContin prescriptions were written, more people died of drug overdoses than car accidents. Opioids, which include both prescription painkillers as well as heroin, accounted for the majority of those deaths. And it's important to not separate heroin from those prescription painkillers. Lots of folks who are getting addicted to pills are turning to heroin once they can't get a prescription anymore. It gives you the same euphoria and it's much cheaper, and you don't need a doctor's note. And the link between heroin and painkillers isn't anecdotal. The CDC has said that, quote, past misuse of prescription opioids is the strongest risk factor for heroin initiation and use, and that the nationwide increase in heroin is closely tied to dependence on pain relievers. In other words, there is widespread agreement that, one, the drug companies lied about how addictive their pills were, and two, that the prescribing of OxyContin in particular is responsible for both the abuse of prescription painkillers and the surge of heroin use in recent years. So this story is really big and it's really complicated. Tell us what you guys want to know. What did we miss? What do you want to learn more about? And do you know anyone maybe who might have an opioid addiction? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.